It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. We had nothing before us. We were all going direct to heaven. We were all going direct the other way. In short, the period was so far like the present period that some of its noisiest authorities insisted on its being received, for good or for evil, in the superlative degree of comparison only. Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Here, I mainly post reviews of literature and books, though I may gradually create content related to music and film as well. You may have already guessed which book I'm reviewing in this episode, since the opening passage I quoted is instantly recognizable by many literature lovers as one of the greatest openings in English literature. The novel is, of course, the renowned A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, one of the greatest British writers of the 19th century and a true literary giant. Last week, following a fan's suggestion, I decided to review this more widely known work of literature. It's been several years since I last read A Tale of Two Cities, and at that time I hadn't yet developed the habit of writing book reviews. So this video won't be a particularly in-depth analysis. Instead, I'll give a brief overview of the plot and themes, Dickens's writing style, and some of his typical character types. If this video can help anyone who wants to learn more about Dickens and A Tale of Two Cities, then I'll be very honored. Dickens came up with the idea for this novel while working with his writer friend Wilkie Collins on a play titled The Frozen Deep. Incidentally, Collins was also an important 19th century English author, known for writing the first full-length detective novel and laying the groundwork for characterization of the great detectives who followed, such as Sherlock Holmes, Hercule Poirot, and Miss Marple. I'll make a video about his major works another time. Now, to prepare for later analysis, here's a brief plot summary of A Tale of Two Cities, with some mild spoilers. The story takes place during the French Revolution, centering on Dr. Manette's daughter and Charles Darnay, a French nobleman who has fled to England. However, a deep blood feud exists between Darnay's family and Dr. Manette's past, meaning that if Darnay is ever discovered, he will certainly be sentenced to the guillotine. Yet, with the help of a generous English barrister who happens to look exactly like him, their love may survive. The two cities in the title, of course, are London and Paris. Dickens's vivid depictions of the poor neighborhoods in London has already moved countless readers, and in A Tale of Two Cities, his portrayals of the Parisian underclass are equally grim and heavy. Dickens deeply understood the suffering of the poor. He had seen it with his own eyes, and he himself had endured repetitive, soul-crushing factory work as a child. That's why his depictions of the poor feel so real. And while he lived through poverty, he also received a good education, developing a strong literary foundation and a remarkable command of prose. With his pen, he created countless lines of poetic brilliance. Having read works by Dickens and many of his fellow writer contemporaries, I can say without hesitation, when it comes to sheer writing ability, most of them seem are at a lower level compared to him. Since it's been so long since I read the book, I'll just introduce two of its characters. Their traits and experiences are actually found in numerous Dickensian novels. The first is the classic Dickensian villain who repays evil with evil. These figures are usually people who were deeply hurt early in life, victims of the darkest sides of humanity, and who grow up only to inflict cruelty on others, trapped forever in darkness. In A Tale of Two Cities, that person is Madame Defarge, the wine shop owner's wife and a fierce revolutionary. She despises all French aristocrats, making it her life's mission to see them and their descendants executed, regardless of their individual character. Her hatred traces back to her childhood, when her peasant family fell victim to the unrestrained cruelty of Darnay's ancestors. Even though Darnay himself is innocent, Madame Defarge, consumed by hatred for all nobles, would never let him live. Readers may naturally feel disgust toward her, but I think characters like her are the ones most likely to exist in real life. After all, those who haven't suffered deeply themselves should be cautious in urging others to forgive. And if you had lived through her sufferings, perhaps you'd be even harsher. Now that I've introduced a character who could exist in real life, let me turn to a second one, who I believe is much less likely to be real. This character is the archetypal embodiment of goodness, truth, and beauty, someone willing to sacrifice everything for others' happiness, someone who remembers and protects those they once loved or received help from, even years later. In A Tale of Two Cities, that person is Sidney Carton, the English barrister who looks just like Darnay. He falls in love with Dr. Manette's daughter at first sight, and even after realizing she has no romantic interest in him, he continues to cherish and protect her. Personally, I think most people, once they know the other person doesn't care for them, would simply move on and look for someone else. But Carton is different. He radiates in selflessness, and even after Lucy and Darnay have confirmed their relationship, he stays close, doing everything he can to save Darnay from the guillotine for the sake of Lucy's happiness. I'm not saying that people like Carton don't exist in real life, but if they do, they're very rare, and should be treasured. Or maybe not, since no one asked them to sacrifice themselves for others anyway. Finally, let's talk about the last major point. Is this novel a realistic novel? A Tale of Two Cities uses the real historical backdrop of the French Revolution, vividly portrays the suffering of the lower social class, and is written with Dickens's most powerful and poetic prose. Given all these features of realism, should we call it a realist novel? I don't think so, and my main reason is the character of Carton. He doesn't feel realistic to me. He's a romantic and an idealist, someone who lives entirely in his dreams of love, to the point of disregarding his own survival. I'm not saying people shouldn't have ideals or be romantic, but ideals and reality are very different things. That said, 19th century England did produce one writer whom I think truly deserves the label of realist, and I'll introduce that author's work in a future video. In conclusion, I still believe Dickens is worth reading, and I encourage everyone to try reading A Tale of Two Cities in English. As a true literary master, Dickens's language is worth studying and memorizing. Reading his works may even help improve your own English expression and writing skills. His novels also offer insights into the real conditions of 19th century Britain during the Industrial Revolution. But for those less interested in learning English or history, and more in exploring human nature, I will say this: the world holds far more Madame Defarges than Sidney Cartons. Since, in these hard times, most people are more concerned with their own interests and survival than that of others.